Espinoza. Cumitas. Landers.
Here.
Rapp. Williams. Schrader.
Here. Okay, we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the regular meeting agenda, please.
Motion to approve the regular.
Second.
Schrader.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Landers.
Yes.
Cumitas.
Yes.
Haas.
Yes.
Public comment this evening?
Nope.
And motion to approve consent agenda, please.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda, including disposition minutes for October 2023, payment of bills, district treasurer's report, interest and activity fund report, cafeteria report, and personnel report.
Second.
Haas.
Yes.
Cumitas.
Yes.
Landers.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Schrader.
Yes. Moving on to our informational items, we had just one for you. Is that correct?
Yes, and it was included in the packet.
Okey-dokey. Next is our administrator reports.
I only have one thing before Jody Peterson is here to kind of outline a few things. But I was notified by the your association of school boards, that Teresa Comitas has been recognized by the IASB for participation in a number of professional development and leadership activities. She's being recognized as a school board member who shows dedication and desire to learn more about school governance. Because of Teresa Comitas' ongoing commitment to continued learning and participation in leadership activities, she's earned designation as an IASB established board leader. We couldn't be more proud.
Did
Did you know about it?
No, I did not know.
How about it?
Awesome.
Exciting, thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure for sure.
Appreciate that.
Do you have a preference for you want me to stand?
I'm
I get
gonna
my
scoot
clicker,
over
but do you
so
have a
I get
preference
under
where you want me to
your
stand?
representation.
Okay. Alright, so Jody Peterson, Director of Student Services. For those of you, I think I've met all of you before. I think Garrett, I haven't met Garrett yet, but, just a little bit about myself. So I service all three schools and, work with principals, work with Brad, just to provide those special education services for students. So this data is from the 22-23 Mendota Elementary School report card. So each student who's found eligible for special education services will receive an individualized education plan or an IEP. This also includes students that receive related services. So your speech students as well are also part of that 20%. So what I'm gonna do on the next few slides is just go through Mendota Elementary School and the breakdown per building for special education. So first, we have Blackstone. Blackstone's K1, students in grades K, kindergarten, and first grade. We have 3 special education teachers at Blackstone. So we have 1 cross-categorical teacher. So a cross-categorical teacher services many disabilities within that classroom. Prior to when students are under the age of 10, majority of students have what we call a developmental delay. We don't specifically give them a disability until they get a little bit older, and we've gone through a couple, every 3 years, students are reassessed to determine their levels. And so mainly in the room, it's students with developmental delays, but we're looking at kids with autism and some possibly could have Down syndrome, and just intellectual disabilities. So that's, we have a teacher for that room. Then we also have 2 resource teachers. We have a kindergarten resource teacher and a first grade resource teacher. And so those teachers do not have a classroom. So like our CrossCat has the same kids all day long, kindergarten through first grade, And then the resource teacher is, helps out the kids in kindergarten or helps the kids out in first grade, so it can look a couple different ways. Sometimes that teacher will say, we have a group of kids who need reading and they need me to be just their reading teacher, and I'm gonna pull those kids to my room and service that group of students. Sometimes we'll look at the kids' levels and we'll say, oh, that student would benefit if that teacher goes into the classroom. And so sometimes the teacher will go into the kindergarten room or go into the first grade room, and it's mainly focused on your core reading, your core math, or it could be support in reading or support in math, not actually teaching that curriculum part.
So if you look at kind of the historical spectrum of from a gen ed classroom to an external placement. So what we're talking about is there are several stops that we have in between. And so from the gen ed classroom, we have resource teachers that do both push in and pull out, so that's a couple of different stops. And then cross-cat is, that's really programming that not every district does. That's a way to provide an additional layer of services in the continuum while keeping kids still here, right? And so a lot of districts go from the gen ed classroom to push in, then pull out, and then they have to start placing kids off-site. But with having those cross-cat classrooms, which we have in every building, then we're able to keep more kids on campus. Thanks, Jody.
Well, thank you, Fran. And then there's also 5 paraprofessionals. Within those 5 paraprofessionals, there are actually 3 paraprofessionals in that cross-categorical room. So these are students that have higher needs that we're servicing, and then each resource teacher has a paraprofessional as well. We also have a shared social worker with Lincoln, and then this year we have a virtual school psychologist that is shared amongst all 3 buildings. We also this year with our virtual school psychologist hired a proctor, a test proctor, and she assists the virtual school psychologist through the testing components, because she'll actually go get the student and bring them down to the testing area. Any questions on K1 for Blackstone? So you'll see this similar, pretty much set up the same within each building. So then we go into Lincoln. Currently, there are 3 special ed teachers. Hopefully after tonight, pending board approval, we'll have 4, because we've always had 4. This year, we had to get together and change classes because we were down a whole teacher, and it was a lot. I mean, it's been a lot on the teachers. They've really stepped up, done a really nice job. So it'll be really nice, hopefully pending board approval, to have that other teacher. So we do have a cross-categorical special education room as well, and that's that self-contained group where the students are there. Those are grades 2, 3, and 4. And then we have a resource teacher for. It's not all grades 2, it kind of goes 2, 3. They kind of overlap a little bit more based on students' levels, because the teachers get together, working through schedules and level the students for their reading and math ability, so then they can then service students more appropriately and make sure they're getting the services that they need for reading and math. And then there's 4 paraprofessionals in that building, and there's 2 in that cross-categorical room, and then 1 for each resource teacher. And then again, we do share our school social worker with Blackstone, and then we have a virtual school psych that's with all 2 buildings. Any questions on the makeup?
Is anybody in the younger grades, used our virtual school psychologist?
Oh yeah, everyone. So for testing, so one thing our school psychologist does is students, every year students have what we call an annual review. It's a yearly IEP meeting. So if a student has an individualized education plan, by law, we are going to meet within that year to see, hey, is the student meeting the goals? We put goals in place. Is that student meeting these individualized goals? Every 3 years, we do something called a reevaluation, and that's what our school psych is utilized for. So the school psych will reevaluate or test students, okay, and that can be some academic testing, that could be IQ testing. Sometimes they'll do rating scales for like kids that might have ADHD. So just a lot of different, and then there's a lot more tests that I don't know about all of them, but those are the majority of the testing that we do utilize. And every 3 years, then we meet, and then we'll say, okay, does this student still qualify for a learning disability? Oh, well, the testing shows maybe the student now qualifies for an intellectual disability. Or maybe the testing shows this student qualifies for autism. So it's all the different disabilities, and our virtual school psych assists with that. And so the other thing is, if you're looking at the NAS, it's the National Association of School Psychologists. Typically, they recommend one school psych for 500 students, and so we do have 1,000. So she is very busy. It's a good question. Anything else?
What kind of caseload does each teacher have?
So that's good. So caseloads I think caseloads are pretty good for the most part. We do have one teacher running a caseload of almost 20. We try, yeah, that's just one, and that's heavy. But typically we're sitting around like 10, 12, 14. Mainly, I'd say about 12. 12 is probably good. We just have that one outlier that's 18. That's a Northbrook, which we're going to next. So then at Northbrook, we have 6 teachers. So we have 2 cross-categorical teachers, and they're divided up into academic cross-cat and functional cross-cat. So our functional cross-cat is more life skills, teaching life skills, teaching students daily living skills. That might be, stuff like maybe writing addresses, writing their phone numbers, learning their phone numbers. And not that we don't always teach any other cross-cat, but mainly it's focused more on that functional skills.
So do they rotate between the two, or?
Nope, so what's nice about Northbrook, because they're individual sections for each math, reading, it overlaps with schedules, but kids they're pushed out more into the gen ed environment for like PE and STEAM and those things, because it lines up evenly with the times, where when you're a reading teacher in 2nd grade, some people have it at 9, some have it at 10, some have it at 10:30, some have it at 11. It's a very difficult schedule for special ed to try to get in at the same time. So yes. Then we also have our other cross-cat teacher is more academic, and focuses on, she'll do some science, she'll do some social studies, she'll do reading and math, but it's more on academic. And then we have one special ed teacher at each grade level, so 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. And then there's 9 paraprofessionals. We have 2, 4, let's see, what did I put on here? So there's 5 special ed teachers just in those cross-categorical rooms, and they actually share one. They rotate back and forth. What did I say?
Special ed teachers.
Oh, paraprofessionals, thank you. So we have 5 paraprofessionals that rotate between the special ed cross-cat rooms, and then each grade level has a parapro. And then Northbrook has their own social worker, so it's not shared, and then we share a virtual school psych. So it kind of just gives you a breakdown of what special ed looks like in each building. And then the last one is preschool. So we also have preschool, and sometimes we have a developmental teacher, which is what we have now, and sometimes we have a PFA teacher, preschool for all, that's also special ed certified. But there's a shortage, and so we have preschool teachers. We just don't have anybody with that extra special ed. So we have one teacher with special ed, and then she has a paraprofessional in her room. And as her numbers grow, which they typically do, she will need a second parapro in there based off the needs of the students. And then we have a 2-day-a-month social worker. So we worked with preschool last year, and that we look to say how can we help support kids social emotionally in ages 3 through 5, and so we have a social work we contract with that comes in. That's through the actual special ed ID grant. So contracted special ed service, these are what we contract out. So we use Hillman to get our occupational therapy for students. We have 2 occupational therapists. And then one is an assistant, so it's assistant occupational therapist. And then we have 2 physical therapists. So your OT is like dressing, buttoning, zippers, more of the handwriting, Okay, and then when you get into physical therapy, that's more like you're improving your strength, your balance, your coordination. And so students have these as related services, so we make sure that that's part of their plan. They have minutes, and so the contracted service provide those minutes to each student.
So is it kind of fine motor skills versus gross motor skills? Is that kind of the distinction, or?
Yeah, it
Well,
overlaps a little bit too, but yeah,
Okay.
the fine versus the gross. We also have services provided through LEASE, and that's our LaSalle Education Special Education Cooperative. We contract our speech paths through LEASE. We have one full-time speech path at Blackstone, one full-time at Lincoln, and 1.5 at Northbrook, because that includes preschool.
So all of our speech language paths that are on campus, they're actually LEASE employees. So even though, I mean, like, I know Amanda's been here for years.
Yeah, 20 years or something, and
But
she's
she,
a LEASE
the whole time
employee.
she's always been a LEASE employee.
We also, if we have a student who needs HI services, hearing itinerant, LEASE also offers a hearing vision itinerant. So they will help service students as well. They have a vision itinerant and hearing itinerant. And we do have students who have those needs, and we do utilize LEASE for those individuals as well. And then LEASE also has a coordinator that we utilize 2 to 3 days a week. And just a multitude of things to help assist, like with the compliance issues, reviewing IEPs, and then I have a list of like professional development I'll show you here in a second that the co-op also, the coordinator assists with as well. And then LEASE also has a preschool screening team, so they come in and screen all those students in 0 to 3, and then give us a list and say, hey, you wanna reach out and talk to these parents, and so then by the age of 3, if we have students who could need an IEP, we have that IEP in place by the time the child is the age of 3. So those are like EI or early intervention. And then LEASE also has a Medicaid coordinator that assists with Medicaid. And then as Paula was saying, so some of the services that LEASE does provide for professional development is CPI, so that is, I had to write this down, nonviolent crisis intervention training. So anybody who has to work with students who might struggle with de-escalation, and we're hands-off. We do not try to utilize a hold unless a student is gonna endanger themselves or endanger someone else. And then we do that, we report everything to the state, so we do occasionally have to use a restraint. But we're very careful about it, and we have a team that meets to make sure we're looking at those numbers. LEASE also is going to provide de-escalation training this year, so, because we know we have a influx of behavioral students, and so we're looking at what else can we provide to staff. And so our social worker and our LEASE coordinator provided zones of regulation to grades K through 4 staff, and they talked about red zones, blue zones, yellow zones, green zones. And then LEASE is also going to provide that de-escalation part and just focus on that, and not where the CPI does the holds in de-escalation, we're just gonna focus on de-escalation to try to give more strategies to help staff. We also do structured teaching. This is a methodology. It's how to work with students, so it involves, like, you're looking at a physical structure, providing lots of visual systems. I could probably stand up here and talk to you for 2 hours just on the structured teaching element itself, but it involves a lot of visuals, work tasks, workstations, and and routines, very routine. Executive functioning is something else. We had quite a few teachers attend that up to the LEASE office. That's ADHD. LEASE will do a 3-day autism training over the summer, co-teaching, and then behavior intervention. So there's just some ideas for professional development that the coordinator then assists with that and then provides a training to our staff. Okay, so then the last thing is out-of-district placements, just to kind of give you an idea. So we have students who struggle, and as a team, we decide, okay, maybe this placement can't support them. We followed our continuum of services. We realize this student needs extra, more than we can provide, and so I look for out-of-district placements. So here's some of the out-of-district placements. We have approximately 4 students at Circuit Breaker, that's in Peru. We have 2 students at Waterman, that's called Chance Light. 2 students at the Northwest Center of Autism in Genoa. And I visited all the places, so if you ever have questions, you can let me know, because I have, I try to get there once a year, sometimes I go twice a year, but I have been to each one. Lighted Way, services students, multitude of different students, but they have 2 students. And then we have Core Academy in Aurora and Mental LaSalle. Let me make sure there wasn't. Any questions on out-of-district placement? You know, it's a lot to take in but, so. Okay, and then there's that last slide. If they can't learn the way we teach the way they learn, so.
Do you think there's anything that we're lacking or that we could do better?
Oh, I think there's things we're doing fabulous, and I think there's things we could always do better. I mean, what I'd love to see, but this isn't just a district, but I'd love to work on a teacher shortage. Cause that's really, I mean, if you're looking at what's really hard, it's so hard when you don't have a teacher at Lincoln. And last year, we didn't have a teacher at Northbrook. And when you're down a whole special ed teacher, that's services. And so you do the best you can, and everyone always does the best they can, but it's servicing kids. And so the biggest thing for me right now would have to be the shortage. So, but I think we do a really good job. I think we work well together, and I think we have fabulous teachers. I love the teachers. They work hard and they step up every time. So when we're down a teacher, let's get our caseloads together. Let's divvy up what we can. Okay, can I do this? Can you do this? And it's just a big collaborative brainstorm session. It happened at Northbrook. It happened at Lincoln. We actually met today because, just to talk about, if the board approves the other special ed teacher, then what that's going to look like now, and it's good.
I think our referral process is improving every year. I think it was very clunky, and I think Lindsay and Jody worked together to create a better referral process, and we're all figuring that out and trying to make it our own. I think that has helped a lot too.
Yeah, with the MTSS.
Mm-hmm.
And we can get better at that too, it's just,
We definitely could get better at that.
but when I came
we're
on, there
trying.
wasn't anything, and now
Mhm.
we already have data days and tier 3 and problem solving, and, we know where we need to go, it's just, it takes a little bit to get there.
Doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
A couple questions. The social worker that's shared between the 2 buildings, that services both gen ed and special ed, right?
Yes. So special ed minutes always come first.
Right.
And then we have our MTSS tier 3 students that are serviced as well, and then even some assistance with our social emotional learning curriculum.
Do you feel like there's enough to provide needs? Because I understand the prioritization of the time, but do you feel like there's still a number of students that maybe would benefit?
Oh, absolutely. I know it's been very instrumental. I know Paul is working with the ROE to try to get some more help through one program she's working on through the ROE, but we definitely could use more social work, especially in that pre-K4 level.
I know, from my own experience, that seems very difficult to be servicing 2 entire buildings with one social worker.
And she's actually was doing she was
So-
doing the pre-K part too, and then I wrote it into a grant so we can move that around a little bit, but yes, it's very
Couldn't a
difficult.
portion of the minutes she's doing be covered under the grants contract out to free up time for gen ed too, potentially?
Let me think a second, so.
You don't have to
There's
answer
something
me
with
right
a
now,
maintenance
but
effort with salaries, so if I were to put something in for salaries, I'd have to talk closely with Brad, because you have to come within a certain amount of dollars with special ed, you can't spend less one year and more another year, or you have to then file maintenance of effort.
Yep.
So it could be tricky.
I just think we have to in my opinion, prioritize. I know we talk about safety being like our number 1 priority, but a lot of the mental health concerns and things and behavioral problems and all that stem from a lot of this, and that seems like a huge need.
Yeah, I would agree there's a need.
And the psych, I know you said normally it's 500 for one and we have 1,000 for
Mhm.
one. Is that, again, meeting our needs, or are we just trying to do?
So what we do is, there's a lot of different things we do to make that happen.
Mhm.
So, we do preschool screening, and so our one Lisa employee, who is a speech path in pre-K, she will assist with those early intervention evaluations and the play-based assessments. So that kind of frees up a little time, we do that. We will also look to use our lease coordinator to go in and do observations within classrooms so that the school psych doesn't have to use that time for observations. We will, if we need help sometimes with an autism, we'll reach out to the co-op and say, hey, can you send your school psych in to help us a little bit? So there's a lot of things that we do, but it definitely, it's a heavy job. And I know that prior to that, we had another school psych who did it part-time. I don't know how she did it, because there is, I mean, last year, I think we did 96 reevaluations. So that was a lot of reevaluations.
My last question was, I know that Lise does the Medicaid billing, but if they assist with the actual billing, but we still benefit from paid
We sure do.
services, right?
Yes, we
Okay.
do. Yep.
Okay.
And so then I work with their Medicaid coordinator to make sure we're getting
Okay.
because all the related service providers complete, it's not my service tracker, they're on a blank, but they'll complete
Mhm.
the hours for that. For
So
reimbursement.
they help facilitate that revenue stream for us.
Okay. I'm curious, and it probably can roll up into a different review of the report card since that data is fairly new, but I'm just interested, like without looking at specifics, was there any surprises off of the report card data as far as like performance within our IEP population?
So with special ed, as far as like IAR,
Right,
I probably wouldn't, so when I'm looking at data, I wanna know instructional level data, where IAR is at my, it's at my grade level. I want data that's at my instructional level, so I'm looking more at progress monitoring and goal data. So I don't look at IAR a whole lot because I wanna know instructionally, are you making growth? Cause that's why you have an individualized plan, because I might be in
Sure.
5th grade with 3rd grade level. So I don't know as far as IAR.
Okay. Question again.
Those are good questions.
For sure, for sure.
Terry?
All right, thank you,
Okay.
appreciate it.
No, you're welcome. Good questions. Always like when you ask questions, because they're like, oh, you're interested.
Absolutely,
Thanks,
you were
Jody.
All right, thank you
interested.
very much.
So, no committees or reports. Let's talk about some tax levies.
Let's talk tax levy, that's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, we're just kind of building on conversations from last year. And so I kind of gave you this one-page handout, and I had sent this to you earlier. So if you kind of look down through, it's, a dozen different funds and a bunch of numbers. This first column would be the proposed rate. The third column would be the revenue affiliated with that. But then, so if you come down here, the 2.699, that was our tax rate from last year. And so in the first model, we would have a levy based on trying to continue that tax rate. So having a flat tax rate, trying to get as close to that as possible. And then the second one would be us trying to target that tax rate being up a dime. If you recall, last year we had a lot of conversations about what that tax rate looks like. We had conversations about the fact that, we're trying to, with respect to educating our students, and respect to supporting our staff, we're trying to provide a sense of fairness in providing our students and staff with what other schools are providing their students and staff with, and that becomes difficult to do when other school districts have tax rates that are 50 cents higher, in some cases $1 higher. And so it's just a conversation about our tax rate as it sits now is significantly lower. And so do we want to over time kind of creep that back up?
Do you have those to share with where the others? I know we had it last year, but
It was,
Send it in the email.
it is in there still, okay.
I-
I'm sorry, I don't remember what
I
it
was thinking it was in one of the updates recently.
And I think it's important, especially for the new people on the board, to remember that you can't go backwards. So I always say this, every time it's time to consider this, if you don't levy what you're allowed to levy in a year, the compounding result of that, you'll never catch up on. So if you choose not to levy your 10 cents this year, next year you can't go back and get this year's plus next year's, and so you'll never go back and catch up. So it might be a potential option here of new money to the tune of $300,000 more that compounds every year. So not only will you not get the $300,000 this year, next year you can't get this year's 300,000 plus whatever next year's would have been. So it's not like a one and done thing. The levy is cumulative over time. So I have a little bit of like PTSD for working in a district that had a board one time that chose not to levy, and resulting several years down the line was cutting the number of sports and extracurriculars because the funding wasn't there. The cost to do business continues to go up. Our expenses continue to go up. It costs more to employ people, it costs more to pay our utilities, it costs more to do everything, and if we keep our levy flat, all we do is slow down any potential development growth, add-ons, and kind of go the other way and open ourselves to potentially, because we know it's going to cost more to do school next year than it costs to do school this year in every one of these funds. And so if you don't try to kind of keep up with at least near that cost, not only are we lower than all the other districts around us, but we will likely dip more and more into the red with each year that goes by. So that's always my 2 cents on the tax levy portion of it. You have one chance each year to try to catch up and or get to a rate that makes sense with what the cost of it doing business is. So
Yeah, so in my Halloween update, just happened to be the 31st, it wasn't themed or anything. Looking at some of our, what I'm gonna say, sister districts, other elementary districts in the county that are our size. Again, last year our tax rate was in the neighborhood of 270. So 270, Peru and LaSalle are between 325 and 330. Streeter's 345, Ottawa's 383.
Did
So,
you see if they have levied to their full capacity for the last 10 years? I know that's public, but do you know that?
I don't know how I would. So.
Just curious, obviously,
Yeah.
since they're higher than we are, assumedly they are taking those levies, but with such the differences between Ottawa to Peru to us, where are they stopping or starting?
could
Yeah,
you,
I can take a look and find out where their rates are different, maybe.
would you be able to tell us our own historical levy?
Yeah, it's been, yep, I can do that. That I believe is in the AFR information that Andrea presented last month. Did Andrea? Yeah, presented last month. So, okay, yep, I can definitely provide that.
And when is the levy, when do we need to
Oh,
turn that in by?
Give me just a second. Yes, so, we have a preliminary tonight. Then we will have a final levy approval at our December meeting, which is the 14th. And so, kind of one of the triggers on the levy hearing, the levy process is what's called a truth in taxation hearing. Sometimes every once in a while you hear people say about, oh, you don't wanna go above 5%, I don't know if you've ever heard that, in the levy process. And that's because, the reason why people say that, or historically have said that, is because anytime the amount of revenue you receive from over last year goes up by 5% or more, you have to have what's called a truth in taxation hearing. You have to publicize, you have to have a special hearing before the meeting, you have to go through some extra steps to add some transparency so everybody knows, oh, the amount of money collected is going up. Quite honestly, I use that transparent process regardless of whether or not we're going up more than 5% or not. I always make sure that we advertise, they always make sure that there's an additional hearing. I always want people to know exactly where we are and what's going on with that. So, I said that to say this, even if the tax rate stays the same, because of our EAV, or property value growth, our revenue's gonna go up by 6% anyway. And so we'll automatically have all of those triggers in place and do all those things, even though we do those things anyway. And so that's really not a conversation or a consideration. The real conversation is just about kind of what we were just talking about is, do we wanna continue to have the same rate, or do we wanna try to creep that up over time to kind of make it a more level playing field with some of the other districts?
And does the tentative, is that a required step to pass it tonight?
It is, and the reason for that is, once that tentative is adopted, then we will advertise off of that. And so let me give you process, so, let's say that tonight, we say, look, we're not for sure that we wanna do anything different, so we're gonna adopt something that's gonna keep us in the 270 neighborhood. Then I will be able to put all those numbers together. That has to be advertised in the paper. There's a kind of a publicity thing to that mechanism. And then at December 14th, if the board says, okay, now we've had time to think about it, instead of 270, we want to do 280 or 275 or whatever that looks like, then I just go back and that's just more work for me on the back end. No big
So
deal.
then do they have to advertise it again?
Yeah, we would
Okay.
advertise it. for
So
sure.
then would it push the whole thing
Nope.
back to
Nope.
January or?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. Come December 14th, we will pass a levy of some kind, and it'll be final, because then all of that information has to be filed with all 3 counties the next day. Technically the next week, but with Christmas having being schedules and different people being closed and this and that and other thing, we will do all our filings the next day. Yeah. For sure.
And the truth in taxation hearing is something we have done many times, and I don't know that we've ever had anyone attend.
Correct. Correct.
So, I mean, I'm not too worried, I mean, I get the point of it, but I'm just, like worried about any major accident. The other question I had, and I know I threw this at you last year too, and you were really good at coming up with the number. Do you remember, so it wouldn't be inclusive of any sort of rebates, but if we could figure out the dollar amount impact on the 2 plans to, like, let's say $100,000 home would change the rate.
Oh, didn't you say it was 30 cents?
Can't remember how to do that.
Numbers
You remember
come
how
out
to
for,
do
Yeah, so what does that dime look like? If we're 270 versus 280, what does that dime look like on a
Yeah.
$200,000 house?
it? Yeah,
I can get that to you.
so before we do the final, I would really like to see it at the flat, the 5 and the 10.
I was gonna ask that too.
I have it in my head
Could you?
somewhere.
Yeah, come on, make her lady.
I
Spit it
feel
out.
like, cause it hit me personally, like, oh, what was it gonna hit me? And I feel like for my house, it was like 30 or 60 is in my head for whatever reason. I will come back and say nothing of the sort, so.
No, that sounds right. So a $200,000 house is gonna have a value without exemptions of give or 67 grand, give or take. And so then a dime on $67,000 is probably $67. That makes sense. But I will definitely double check on all that.
And then, and then clearly people with exemptions brings it down from there.
So did I hear you say that, where are we, that we would like a third mock-up? So 0, 5, 10? Yep, you bet.
Didn't we do the middle one last year?
And we proposed up to a quarter, I think, last year, or 30 cents, I think. We went
Oh,
higher.
We tried higher that one, but we had to come down a little.
We saw something higher than a dime, because the dime is what we went with, right?
I don't remember
I
that.
don't think we went with anything.
No, we did.
Was
We
it
for
5
sure did.
cents?
I thought it was 5. I thought that we looked at the same exact thing last year, the 10, and then we went with 5. I probably have it written down, because I didn't do it.
Okay, I will look at what we did last year too.
And then we were proposed higher, didn't get it, have to go around and redo and got lower.
I can get all that.
I was just looking, cause you had around December of 2022. Oh no, last year, look at that. It says 269 to 269. I must be thinking of the year before. I can't remember. Or maybe we tried it and it failed. I really don't remember. I have to look back at our notes.
Maybe now.
Okay, alright, so we need to put a number out there tonight, which we're not married to, but either way, we're gonna have a truth in taxation because of the
All of that, all of that.
EAB and all those other things. Would anybody like to venture out and make a,
In our entirety, we can go up to what, just out of curiosity, what's our,
I would have to do a lot of work to try to figure out how to have a tax rate over, like today, how to have a tax rate over about 3.25.
like, in my head, if we could get to half of the difference from here to our next lowest town, kinda like we did when we were doing the teachers' contracts, we went and we saw that disparity, and we said, we can't always be this person, or this entity, and if there's a way to, I know you can't catch up, as we just said, but to try to bridge that.
So halfway between us and LaSalle and Peru would be about $3, which is about a 30-cent increase.
it's too much, especially right now.
Which is probably a good goal, but we would wanna have that in increments, getting up to that. That might be like a 3 or 4 year plan.
Okay. I would like to be the. They do, but usually once you get a lot more comfortable with your funding and your debt and all of the other things that go along with it, like think of where the high school was sitting compared to us. They didn't need to charge registration fees, like they had, I mean, the building needs are very different. It just
Right.
depends on what your needs are, and for how long you maybe didn't levy when you could have levied. But I think with what we've done, in my opinion, we've given a lot of proof to the investment in our district. That's, I think, fairly obvious, whether it's the investment in our teacher contract, the investment in our facilities that we've done, the investment in technology that we've done. I think we're showing that it's
They're
not just.
getting their money's worth.
Right, it's not just raising the taxes to raise the taxes, like, we didn't have air conditioning in the year 2022, like, that was a problem, right? 2021, that we needed to catch up, right, with what other people had, let alone being able to look at some of the amazing facilities and offerings and things that other areas can do, so, without it being too much of a burden. But when you do talk about it being like $60 a year without exemptions on a $200,000 house, dividing that up in a monthly bill, yes, it's something, but it's not.
It's $5 a month.
Right, it's not crippling to a lot of people, so I do think investing in it, and also investing in your school system, when your school system becomes an attractive place to live that feeds home values, which benefits all homeowners here, right, and that evaluation, so. Just my 2 cents, but somebody should motion.
I'd like to go off of the idea of a 3-year plan to bridge that gap, but I don't know what those numbers would be that would be appropriate if you wanna help guide on that number.
Yeah, and so it's we just need a motion of any kind today, and then I can lay out some additional plans, and I can break down what that number is and what would a 3-year or 4-year or even 5-year implementation look like. I can provide all of that in the next couple of weeks, so a final determination can be made in December. For sure.
If no one's looking to keep it flat, then given the impact at the dime doesn't look too awful, I mean, that seems like a relatively reasonable place to start for tonight, unless somebody's thinking about flat and not levying.
I don't know the correct number to, if you're
Oh.
saying 10, that's what I'm getting at, is to say this, I need you, the number, if you're saying 10 is what we're thinking.
So the anticipated rate is this number right here.
No, I'm sorry, I guess I understand that, but
That's how you would motion, if that's what you're asking.
is that,
So you were
That would
going
be our
to
rate.
say 10
I'm not
cents.
saying it right. I guess that's what you gave us the paperwork for, so assumedly that's what you want, but is that what will that help us, that
Catch up.
number fractionally get to where we're hoping to go?
I think each step helps, and I do think if, like what Brad was saying, is if he can take a look at how aggressive would 5 years look, 3 years look, and put that levy together, not only with a percentage amount, but also what that looks like as far as new money in the district and new money, to the homeowner impact, I think is important.
For sure.
So if all of that can come back to us, then whether that looks like 10 or 5, 10, 15, 20, whatever that looks like, to get us closer. I do think putting the high school in there is also an important component. And we'd like to see where they're at too, because it's the same taxing body.
Yeah, I agree.
I also think understanding the debt service expense as well as a component that maybe not everyone understands, and I don't know that my terminology is gonna be the best explanation, but
I got you.
so you understand when we sell bonds and we have debt to pay off, that is one component that's not impacted. I mean, that doesn't matter whether we levy it or not, that whatever we've taken out as far as those expenditures for the debt service would still remain due, and this is over and above that, so.
Correct.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to approve the tentative tax levy with anticipated rate of 2.79. 2.799.
Do you have a second?
Second.
And roll call.
Schrader,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Landers,
Yes.
Komitas,
Yes.
Haas.
Yes.
Next one is our facility work, so this is our new update from DRP.
It's actually the exact same.
Oh, same one.
It's just the same, I just wanted to make sure that it was back in front of everybody. So it's the same, you know, A, B, C, D, you know, as we continue to, be in a holding pattern with solar, production, even though it's the third week in November and we still don't have any installation yet. We're still waiting on that.
Who is the holdup on that?
It's just a scheduling with GRP waiting. It's, they're ready to go. Just a matter of getting all of their people in line and getting the work done. So it's scheduling electrical contractors and getting people to actually get the work done.
If we don't get it done soon, are we gonna hear that there was no chance to do it until spring?
No, that was one of the questions that I've been asking. No, like I said, it's, winter installation is not a problem.
Okay.
But at the same, and I know that it's only November, but at the same time, with all the lead time that we need on all of these projects in order to get things ordered, if we don't make a commitment to one of these tonight, then really December would probably kind of be the last that you really wanna hold that off until January, if we wanna make sure that everything gets ordered and put in place.
The main difference between A and B was that exterior here out front, right?
Yep.
And that was something you said we might be able to even take a look at doing some of that
For sure,
in-house.
for sure. I've already had conversations with Dustin about that. Dustin, who is starting the 6th grade restroom renovations this.
Yay.
Tomorrow.
happy sixth graders.
Yes,
Right.
happy principal.
So yeah, so that front porch, we'll still have some attention given to it. Just when we see things that are in GRP proposals that we think they're small enough in scope that we can bite off, we can typically do them. Anytime you do it yourself, you're gonna be able to do it,
Right.
a little more cost effective, and so, we try to do that, for sure.
Does anyone not feel comfortable moving forward with this decision, since we know we really should have it in place by next month? If there's missing information, things you want before we vote on it, can you voice that now, so we don't just keep kinda kicking it down?
I can't think of anything, cause we've kind of talked about it quite a bit.
I really think option A is a great path for us. It continues to still move things forward, checks off some real big functionality pieces. With the asbestos, it really takes care of, some safety issues. Really takes care of that sixth, seventh grade, eighth grade hallway, that angle glass. It's very minimal, but it still continues to move us forward. And so I don't feel comfortable, 1.2 or 1.8 million or, that kind of thing. But I do think that it really encompasses the things that I think are really a priority right now.
Again, going back to what we've always said, which is, as we allocate, safety is always our primary concern. And so if we're moving all of that glass, which there is some broken already, like, I think
It's
that.
horrible.
Yeah, and asbestos clearly is not a good add-on. It's kind of where I'm thinking too, but I don't want to rush the vote if anyone had more questions or wanted more information.
I have no problem with that.
Okay. Is anybody comfortable calling for the motion then?
I move to approve the summer 2024 facility work in package A in the amount of $780,726.
In a second. In a second, so roll call.
Kumitas,
Yes.
Landers,
Yes.
Haas,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Schrader.
Yes.
Copy machines.
Yeah, so this is not nearly as exciting as the last two conversations, but it's time for a renewal. We're gonna go to the same manufacturer that the high school just went to recently. They really like their transition, and at the end of the day, it's gonna save us about $2,000 a month over what our last contract was. So
That's a big amount.
Mm-hmm.
super good. Yeah,
How long is the contract?
5 year.
Mm-hmm.
And in this one, at the end of the 5 years, we still own them. So there's actually value in this contract, where in the last ones, these ones that we have now, when the contract's over, they're not ours. And so, it's the way to go.
So the 5 years really the service agreement, and it's like a payment plan?
Actually, we're buying them all up front.
Okay, so the 5 year is just the service
Service
agreement?
plan, yep. And then if some of them still have life in them at the end of 5 years, then we won't need to have that expense at that time. So, love it.
Do they ever replace anything that becomes outdated as part of that plan, or is it just keep these machines?
So in the service plan, they're guaranteeing uptime, right? Regardless of whether we're leasing them or we own them, that's what they're guaranteeing. And so, yeah, it's super good.
It's a vital machine in every school,
Got that right?
as much as we try to keep pulling away. Okay. Any questions about it? If not, do we have a motion?
I move to approve the new copy machines as presented.
Second.
In a second, roll call.
Schrader,
Yes.
Williams, Landers,
Yes.
Kumitas,
Yes.
Haas.
Yes.
We have a motion to enter, wait, I'm confused. Well,
Press
let's do
policy.
discussion first.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, press policy. Oh, we got a new press policy. Forgot about that. So everybody, do you all remember what that is? That's our, release that comes out as part of our subscription to the Illinois Association of School Boards. So this is the legal review of policy of which we subscribe. So as new laws come into place or changes as far as case law and footnotes and things like that go in press policy, then we receive a copy of that, and then we would have first reading and then adoption of those changes. So
This is just the first reading, and so we won't have any formal adoption until next month, but again, there's really nothing exciting in there.
and the changes to it are linked somewhere or kind of linked somewhere.
I believe they're actually, the entire attachment is in your board
Okay,
packet.
okay. Not that you'd really wanna read every single thing, but it's there.
Yeah, at least take a quick glance at the summary, you
The
know.
summary, yes.
But it's just a couple pages, but there's nothing to get excited about.
Footnotes.
If you're having trouble sleeping one night, get that out.
I can tell you, this is a massive blessing that we just straight up subscribed to policy from press, because individually managing hundreds of policies and all of the ramifications and risk associated with it is so much nicer.
For sure.
Alright, so we will have adoption of that coming up. So now, if we could move to, the motion for executive session for the discussion of employment personnel.
I move that we go into executive session for discussion of employment of personnel.
In a second. And roll call.
Haas,
Yes.
Kumitas,
Yes.
Landers,
Yes.
Williams. Schrader.
Yes.
Alright, we will go to enter executive session. We will come back out of some
Executive session and go back into open session.
at 8:16 PM.
Yes.
Second.
Thank you.
Second. And roll call.
Schrader,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Landers,
Yes.
Kumitas,
Yes.
Haas.
Yes.
Alright. Turn that back on.
Already did.
Okay, item 9.1, adoption of the separation agreement. Could we have a motion, please?
Make a motion to adopt the separation agreement between the Board of Education and David Lawrence.
In a second.
Second.
And roll call.
Kumitas,
Yes.
Landers,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
Haas.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Alright, we out. Thank you.
Garrett, thanks for calling in.